We're here. We're live. It is a fantasy basketball mailbag. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I'm a big fan of Madame Gaga, Bon Jovi, and the Coldplay. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free, and we are available on all platforms. Sorry for the couple of minute delay here. A, slept in. B, got in. My computer had jumped back to the BIOS screen, so I was trying to get out of that, and it was a never-ending loop. So everything had to reboot. It was just a disaster of a morning. But that's okay, because we're all of our lives are brightened up because we're here to talk fantasy basketball. More importantly, our lives are brightened up because the big fella is here himself, Adam King. Welcome back to the show, mate.
Yeah, good to be back. It's been a little while. It's bright and early here, but ready to go, ready to start the day with some fantasy basketball.
Exactly. We are ready to go, and I believe we just got an update on old mate Coby White, who's dealing with that hip issue. They said a mild hip strain, so that's a W. They haven't even listed him as out for today, so that's huge. He's not playing today, but they haven't listed him as out for today, so I think we can feel pretty good about that. I don't think we've got any sort of diagnoses on Luka Doncic apart from the fact that he is out today. So they're the two big ones done. I'll just talk to you before I answer questions here. What do you think about with Coby White out? Would you say anyone that you would run to grab? Because I wouldn't.
Not really. I talked about this last night on my show. They play the Clippers, I believe, today. So
yep.
Maybe this is a Andre Drummond game. If the Clippers roll with Zubats and Plumlee and Tice, maybe Drummond.
Yeah, but
tonight.
They won't. The Clippers never do that. There's no chance they're running. They'll run with no center versus two centers. And Drummond played 9 minutes last game. I think that what they'll do is you'll get Batim, you'll get Carter, you'll get Torrey Craig, you'll get Julian Phillips, who's questionable himself. I would be very surprised if the Bulls run two bigs. Although, again, you are right that they are running out of NBA caliber players, so they might go that direction. But anyway, I don't care. Not adding anyone. And even with Luka, who knows how long he's going to be out here. But are you looking at Hardaway or Exum or Green or Hardy or anybody? I think I'm probably staying away there as well.
Yeah, no one sort of jumps off the page at me. I think Hardaway, they're going to need a bit of scoring. So Hardaway probably gets some more shots. It doesn't mean they go in. And then it's probably Josh Green. I mean, I'd love to say that it's Dante Exum and we're going to go back to that weird 2-week period where he was standardly relevant. But I'm not convinced that happened. So, yeah, not really a clear pickup here.
Exactly. So let's get to questions, Kingy. All right. We are okay. Well, yeah. Orlando Gonzalez. Do you have any takes on Vukcevic at Washington? I talked about Tristan yesterday. He's coming across. Rashawn Holmes is still injured. Look, it's very hard for me to look at a rookie center coming across who I don't know when he's going to play, how much he's going to play, and to think that he's going to be this must-add guy. I don't even know when he's going to be there. So, do you have any thoughts on what you do with Vukcevic? I think there will be a moment that he does have an impact, but I'm not rushing into it or anything like that.
No, I'm not rushing. I mean, it makes sense for them to get him out there over Bagley and over Rashawn Holmes, but whether they do that. So at the moment, nothing. I just monitor the situation and see what they do with him, see what his role looks like.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, I see this a lot with people. With someone's said here, Coby White has been ruled out. He's out on Yahoo. Doesn't matter. Yahoo is wrong. Do not listen to fantasy sites when they put their injury designations up. For a start, when Yahoo or ESPN does it, they have three things. I and J, not a real status. O, okay, that's their status. And game time decision, not a real status. They are wrong. And I cannot stress this enough how bad Yahoo's product is. I know ESPN's is bad as well. But the IL designation stuff is completely out of whack. the rule is 7 days, but they don't apply it equally. If for some reason everyone thinks it's 3 games out, and then, one out of every 20 replies that Yahoo Fantasy Cares account has says, it's got to be 7 days, although sometimes we'll do it when it's 3 games. So, bro, it's just a terrible system. Never use IL, and Yahoo's entire system is terrible, but also never believe their injury statuses. He is not out. He is currently listed questionable. So, he's not going to play. I'm telling you he's not going to play, but that is wrong. So, yeah, there we go. Bang. All right. Philip Zhang says, should we consider discounting players on bad teams for drafts with regards to ADP? Seems like having early playoffs doesn't negate shutdown shenanigans. Portland, Memphis, Utah, San Antonio last year. Well, okay. The problem there is that, like, it's very hard to know that. Like, everyone would have said, well, the Spurs are terrible, right, this year, so we're not drafting those guys, all the shutdowns. None of that's happened. No one would have considered that with Memphis this year at all. Not one person would have said, well, Memphis is going to be one of the worst 3 teams in the NBA will do that. Everyone would have said, well, it's time. The Pistons are actually going in for it. They'll be a little bit better. It's all well and good to say that in hindsight, but you don't know. Like, you can't do it. It's impossible to do that. I believe anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think the concept is there. I mean, but in terms of actually implementing that, it's such a subjective topic. You don't know coming into the season, as you said, who's going to shut it down. And Memphis is a perfect example this season. No one would have thought that Memphis would be heading into the last month of the season in the bottom of the standings based on what we've seen in the last couple of years. So, if we were to come into next year and for whatever reason the Nuggets were to lose Nikola Jokic for the season and Jamal Murray went down with a severely sprained ankle for 2 months, they might be in this situation as well, and you can't foresee that.
Exactly. So people are going back about the Coby White thing. Says, well, Woj says he's out. I know Woj says he's out. He is out, I'm telling you. But I'm telling you, the official injury designation is still questionable. And this is where it frustrates me with the Yahoo, is that I was going, for some reason, I woke up at 2 a.m. and I was looking through Yahoo Fantasy Cares Twitter replies, as you do, because they're annoying me with their INJ status stuff. And there was a tweet from Sham saying that Cade Cunningham was going to be reevaluated for 7 to 10 days with his knee issue back in February, right? So someone says, hey, 7 to 10 days, where's the INJ tag? And the Yahoo person replied back and says, we can only list him as game time decision until we get an official release from the Pistons. So which one is it? Are they listing him out today because Woj said he's out, but the Bulls said he's not out? Like, the inconsistency is where that entire system is absolutely ridiculous. And it's why it should always only be IL+, and you should never play in a league that doesn't have IL+, including the Yahoo public leagues, which they take a percentage of that money to you anyway, and then they screw you with decisions like this. So I know that he is out. I know Coby White is out. But also Yahoo is not the arbiter of who is in or out, because they're not, because they make up their rules as they go along. And I think you would know by now that you can't trust a Yahoo injury report. Okay. Pedro Marquez, do you think a men's value is high enough to drop someone like Duncan Robinson in 9-cat? Kingy, what do you think about where we're sitting with Amen Thompson?
Probably depends a little bit on your league playoffs, where you're sitting. So situation comes into consideration here, but I think looking at it bigger picture, I'd probably be okay with that. I think if the Heat are healthy, Duncan Robinson, he'll get you some points and threes, not much else. Whereas I think a men's arrow is pointed up. He's starting. I know he wasn't great in their last game, but if they're going to roll with him as a starter and he's going to play 25, 26 minutes, I think he does more for you across the board.
Yeah, true. Look, it might not work with the men. That maybe they do keep him in 23 minutes even as a starter, but I think you do have to go in that direction. We're going to come back with a bunch of questions that I can see here that are pretty interesting, including one about Scoot Henderson, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that soon. Just stay tuned, because I do have to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with me to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. So when you're prepping for the fantasy playoffs and you're scouting the waiver wire, we're going to help give you those players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So, one guy I'm looking at here, I was going to say Amen Thompson, but let's go to his teammate, the big fella, Jacques Landale, who played 26 minutes last night. I think it might be a little bit harder for him today against the Wizards with a smaller lineup, but he showed an ability to get some rebounds, to pass. He can block a shot. He can hit a three occasionally. And I do think that he's at least worthy to have a look at for 12-team leagues. I've added him in some formats. I would have still preferred to add Amen Thompson. But I think Landale has an opportunity here to put up some at least back-end numbers, similar to what he did in Phoenix last season when DeAndre Ayton was out. Now, is that the perfect fit on your team? Well, for some of you, it will be. And getting the right player who's the guaranteed fit on your team is a great way to win a championship, and eBay Motors knows that. And that's the same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever it is that your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, it is guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber and not cash. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to US customers. Eligible items only, and exclusions apply. All right, so Daniel says, do you give Scoot the boot? Yesterday was very, very bad from Scoot Henderson. Kingy, he played like 19 minutes or 17 minutes. He shot 13%. They said they were going to reduce his minutes. I thought that was extreme, but I also, when I did the recap show yesterday, failed to acknowledge that he was in foul trouble yesterday. I think this is a general rule, I think, during the fantasy playoffs. You can look at that and go, that's terrible. And people have heard me say this a million times. If you drop Scoot Henderson today, you don't wipe yesterday's game off the ledger. That is done. You don't remove that, right? So dropping him today doesn't give you a game's played advantage because he plays today already. So, like, you look, the number one question you ask is, do I get a game's played advantage? Yes, we agree with that during the playoffs?
Yep,
you get a game's played advantage. And the second thing is like, all right, what Scoot did yesterday, like, how realistic is that it's going to be an ongoing thing? 17 minutes, 13% shooting, 2 points. Like, it's not, right? So it's very easy to have a quick overreaction. Wow, my God, look at that. That killed me. It did, but it doesn't mean it's going to kill you again. It's all about, like, what's the process behind it? Does that make sense to be a regular thing? So I say all that as a big preamble, but like in a 10-team, and maybe you don't have Scoot in a 10-team 9-category league, but as a general rule, that game yesterday shouldn't change a gigantic amount about the way you evaluate things.
No, 10-teamer, yeah, look, that's, I guess, different to if you're looking at a standard league situation. So 10-teamer maybe you move on and you might get more value from streaming. But yes, look, they reduced his minutes, but they're on a back-to-back, so they said they were going to do this. He actually started the second half, I believe, and then picked up a couple of fouls quickly, so they yanked him. And so I think he probably would have played more minutes than this. I think he would have played mid-20s, maybe. Poor shooting, if you've got him on your team, you know you're going to get poor shooting. Don't expect anything else, so... I'd be holding, I think, in most situations.
I would too. Again, the caveat is in a 10-team league, you might have a bunch of other really good options on the waiver wire, and I don't really know who's available there. But yeah, I wouldn't be like overreacting to that one game there. Mitch says, should you change all IL into IL Plus next season? 100%. There is zero reason to have IL. None. Absolutely no reason. I've been thinking a lot about ways to improve fantasy basketball. You know, last year, Kingy, I think we had a discussion about my idea of changing things with the positional games cap limit. And I think it's worked pretty well. How have you found that actually in industry pickup? Because I've spoken to a lot of people that I've run it through 91 leagues this season. How have you found that change to like limiting, like evening things up by not having a waiver limit, by having a strict games limit? Like that's, there's two ways of doing it, and I think that way's better. But how do you feel that's gone?
Yeah, look, it takes a little bit of getting used to. And I think some people that were in that industry pickup league probably mismanaged their lineups occasionally. It does mean you have to plan ahead a little bit and have a look at who's playing, and you're not simply rolling out every player every night and streaming in. So yeah, I think it helps. I think it does negate some of that injury risk. So no, I thought it was probably a positive, and I'll probably be implementing that in a couple of my leagues. Something similar anyway next season.
To me, the downside of it is that you're just not used to it. And that's like with so many things you change. Well, that's not what fantasy basketball is, or that's not what fantasy basketball was, or I'm not used to doing that. And that's a downside. That's a downside with anything that you do or try and do differently. But I think as a general rule, when you look at the overall changes that were made there, I do think it makes things fairer, and a better competition overall. Just takes a bit of time to get people people used to that, I guess. All right. Do I think Harden plays both games of the back-to-back? No. I think there's no chance he plays both of these games. What do you think? The Clippers got 3 games in 4 nights. We can transition this from a Harden take into a Kawhi take into a what do you do in terms of replacements, but how do you view the Harden thing?
I doubt it very much. They even came out yesterday or the day before and said they need to find him some rest.
Yep.
That they've been playing him too much. So even with Kawhi I think he's still questionable, isn't he?
Kawhi is still questionable. Yes.
Yeah. Officially questionable.
He is. He's Yahoo questionable.
Yeah. No, look, I don't think, disregard the Kawhi news. Like, I don't think that impacts their plans here. They've come out and said it. So, no, I don't think Harden plays both the back-to-backs.
I don't know which one he's going to sit, but I would say that Kawhi sits Thursday, Harden sits Friday, would be my guess. There's no way I think that he is playing. And then it's a great opportunity to stream in Norman Powell. He is the key streamer here. Yeah. After him, though, do you go to Bones? Do you go to Mann? Or do you go to like one of the backup centers? I would think, like, Mann's going to play his 25, 26 a night, right? Coffee's going to get one game, it pushes to 30. But there's probably going to be one game in there where Bones gets 30 and like 15 in the other two. Is that enough? Is Bones enough of a producer stat accumulator to jump over the low volume that Terrence Mann or Amir Coffey provides?
Yeah, I think I'd take the chance on Bones. If he, for some reason, plays 30 minutes, we've seen in the past that he can put up good numbers. And Terrence Mann, even in 32 minutes, he's not even a standard league must-roster guy. So, yeah, I think I'd take the flyer on Bones if we know that Harden is going to be out.
Sponger says, what are my opinions on Kristaps Porzingis' hammy injury? Is his fantasy season over, or can we expect him to come back in 1 to 2 weeks? Now, there's been a lot of overreactions to the Porzingis thing. He's very easy to target. Like, the amount of comments I said, man, I'm never drafting this guy again. He kills me every time. It's the worst. I know he's got a hamstring injury, but I said this over on Basketball Monster. I said, if he suffered this hamstring injury on the 2nd of November and played the games that he played November, December in March, no one would have a single complaint whatsoever. Everyone would just be like, man, this guy's dominating. He's driving me to a fantasy title. It's been amazing, right? The problem is that the injury has happened at this point of the season. The Celtics are so far ahead of everybody else that they can afford to be pretty cautious with it. So it is frustrating that he's missing these games, but I think he missed 1 game in February and like 2 games in December or something like that. So it's not like it's been an ongoing thing. It just happens to have happened at this point of the year, which is incredibly frustrating. Is his fantasy season over? Well, that really depends. Like, how long's your fantasy season? Like, is it a 3-week injury? I've got honestly no idea. They haven't told us anything. I would think that he is out. Like, they go Sunday, Monday on a back-to-back. I would guess that the earliest he probably plays now is Monday, but I don't know. I would, in 1 to 2 weeks, I think he'll be back, yes. But how are you viewing that whole, the Celtics with these, like, they've already had one of the back-to-backs, but they've got 2 more back-to-backs in the next, like, 9 days, which is going to lead to more chaos, I think.
Yeah, I think we had a question like this last night. Basically, it was, is he playing this week? And I don't think he plays this week. As you said, Monday, the second night of that back-to-back, maybe they look at bringing him back then, but then they've got another back-to-back coming up, so he'll only play one of those at best. Yep. And, I mean, they're just in a position where they don't have to play him. They're clearly at the top of the standings. There's no reason at all they want him for the playoffs. So, yeah, I think he does come back within 2 weeks, so next week, but he probably doesn't play every game.
I also think there's a level of misunderstanding. This goes back to an earlier question, Kingy, where that person was like, do we just avoid the guys from bad teams? Well, did you start avoiding guys from good teams because they're too good? And then you're left with a pool of like 15 teams to draft from. The other thing is that people start to maybe, I don't know what the right word is, but imagine scenarios that aren't going to happen. They go, well, the Celtics just going to shut Tatum down all of April while they prepare for the playoffs? That's not what teams usually do. They'll have days off. Right, they'll have the occasional day off, but they don't just stop playing them for 2 weeks to get ready for the playoffs. The players hate that. They lose conditioning, they lose form, they lose all that sort of stuff. But they won't be as locked into bigger minutes. They won't be as locked into playing every single night. But it's not a situation where they go, all right, April the 10th, April the 3rd, we're done. We'll see you guys for the 1v8 matchup. That's not how that works.
No, I think maybe they shut them down for the last 2 games of the year, something like that.
Sometimes they shut them, they sit them the second last, and they play them the last game for like 10 minutes just to get a bit of rhythm going, and then they're out of there. So that's again why those last couple of weeks are disastrous, because there's just random stuff happening everywhere. Yeah. Daniel says, is Jont Porter a good grab in a 12-team 9-cat league if you need a big? You can elaborate on this, but Kingy, my answer is yes.
Yeah. I think so. He had a little run earlier in the season where he was playing good minutes. Pirtle is done. I mean, Olynyk's been good and they've re-signed him, but I don't think they have any incentive to be playing him big minutes. They know exactly who he is, what he can bring, what he does for the team. So, yeah, look, I think if you want to take a bit of a chance here on Jonte, he'd be worth it.
His ability to do many different things across many different areas of the box score gives me that appeal. There is no other centre there. They're only playing Olynyk 28 a night. There's a chance that Olynyk gets reduced at some point as well. I think that he's on the two-way contract game limit scenario, but there are easy ways for him to get onto that full contract. Like they just re-signed Jamias Ramsey to another 10-day today. So once that expires, they can just put Porter into that full-time roster slot and then we're good to go. So I actually think it's going to be okay in terms of the games played. And look here, he is playing really well at the moment. All right, get your other questions in. We'll be back to get them in a second. Today's episode is brought to you by Stitch Fix. When you're wearing something good that makes you feel good and look good, you get that instant confidence boost, and that's what you can get from Stitch Fix. You can easily upgrade your wardrobe this season with Stitch Fix and their professional stylists helping you find the new on-trend favorites that will work for you. You give them your size, your style, your budget preferences, and then whenever you need it, you order a box. They get 5 different clothing items. They send them to you in that box. It's not a subscription thing. They send you the 5 different clothing items. They give you outfit recommendations and styling advice. Whatever you find works, you keep, and the rest you can send back. And when you don't like something that's in there, you don't love it, you can send it back because all shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. It's style that makes you feel as good as you look. So get started today at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That is stitchfix.com/lockedon. stitchfix.com/lockedon. Okay, does Cornette still have value when Horford plays? I guess you're talking about the absence of Porzingis. Kingy, what do you think about Luke Cornette?
Well, define value. He has value in deeper leagues. Would you be adding him in a standard league? I don't think so. I mean, he gets you some blocks. It sort of depends if you're after just specific categories. Maybe you consider streaming him in, but yeah, I don't think he plays more than sort of 18 minutes.
I think the time you'd look to add him is the Sunday, Monday back-to-back because Horford will sit one of those, Porzingis sits 1 to 2 of those, and then he's got a chance at some bigger minutes. But as a general rule, no. All right, we haven't done it yet, but Desmond Bane, is he worth a number 1 waiver pick? Playoff start next week. A, I feel sorry for you that your playoffs start next week. B, I don't prioritize waiver. Again, that's another thing we just need to get rid of, this waiver priority system. It's just the worst way to play fantasy as well in that sense. Like, we need to remove that part of it as a standard setting as well. But what are your thoughts on Desmond Bane? My thoughts have been, King, like, have a look at the way Memphis is running rotations and injury reports right now. And I don't think that Desmond Bane's coming back and going to be the exception to that, where he's like, all right, guys, I'm off. I'm playing 30 minutes a night. I'm never sitting, and it is complete consistency. Plus, I don't know when he comes back or how long he lasts. So is he okay to take a crack at? Your playoffs haven't started yet. Fine. But my level of confidence in him just having an unfettered run to end the year is pretty low.
Yeah, I think based on what we've seen from the Grizzlies, there's no way he comes back and plays heavy minutes. There's no way he comes back and plays every game. I don't know how many games they've got left. I'm thinking it's maybe 15 to 18 games. I don't know if you've got that in front of you, but he maybe plays half of those. And that's depending on when he comes back. He's getting closer, but they haven't put a date on it. So he was available in one of my leagues. I looked at him, considered him. I ended up picking up Jalen Suggs instead. So
I think he'll have a couple of interesting games, but I think in the end it will end up being more hassle than it's worth. But I'm not telling you not to do it because obviously the appeal is there. I just be really cautious about putting too much faith in it, I guess. Antonio Gomez, with Poku back, do you think that he's going to play a bigger role with the Hornets' limited players? I think we need to get over our obsession with Pokusevski. He was okay yesterday, but a lot of people like just getting so excited about it. He had 8 points or something? 9 points with 2 blocks in 26 minutes. Like, he's fine. He played finally one decent game with good minutes. I don't think that everyone, all right, guys, clear out. It's Poku time. It might happen. Maybe he does go on a run, but he's a quite limited player, and we've seen this for 4 years. And I don't see him being someone that I am super excited about. But people love him because he's skinny. What do you think about it, Kingy?
Yeah, look, they ran a really they weren't deep yesterday. It was a weird rotation. 8 guys. Okay. So, and they have 2 games next week as well. So the schedule is not favourable. And there's a reason that he's jumped around from team to team. I know he has this stat set that's really intriguing from a fantasy perspective, but he just hasn't had a big role ever wherever he's played. So, yeah, look, obviously yesterday was sort of encouraging, but I wouldn't be running to add him at all.
Oh, it was definitely encouraging. Like, it was fine. But, like, I wouldn't go, wow, everything's happening, everything's coming up Poku. Carlos, it's always interesting when I do these shows when someone goes, is your man Hartenstein a drop? Like, I think I've said that for the last week or so, but I know everyone can't watch everything that I do. So, yes, like, as frustrating as it is, yes, like, you can't really hold through these continued limited minutes, and the fact that now Precious Achiuwa is exclusively a backup center as well gives Thibodeau even more leeway to limit Hartenstein and preserve his Achilles for the playoffs. I saw a Knicks person, I don't know who it was, a Knicks fan somewhere on Twitter talking about their playoff rotation, and they were like, they're giving their guys they're going to go, and that for a start, they thought they would play like 20 minutes a night of Hartenstein, Achiuwa, and Robinson in the playoffs. There's no way that's going to happen. But irrespectively, because I think they'll definitely just put Mitch Robinson back into the starting lineup because of Hartenstein's injury concerns, so they can preserve him. Robinson's coming off like a 15-week ankle surgery. I think he's got pretty much equal injury concerns. This is not anything to do with fantasy, but it's all just weird the way that people process different parts of information. But anyway, yes, the answer is Hartenstein is a drop, which is unfortunate. Mark Nutso, Kingy, he's asking you because you know everything. Do you think Jaylen Johnson will play tomorrow?
What is he? Is he questionable? I haven't looked.
There's no official status on him.
Nothing yet. Look, I hope he gets back out there soon. Does he play tomorrow?
Look, the answer is, King, we don't know. We've got no idea, right?
Yeah.
We can speculate, but we actually have no idea what the diagnosis is. We don't know what kind of a grade ankle sprain it is. We know nothing. So I can sit here, and the best I can tell you is maybe. We don't know. There is no information that gives us anything. Like if someone says, hey, they've got a grade 2 hamstring strain, are they going to play tomorrow? I'll go, nah, they're out for 4 weeks. Like that's where we can get easy on it. This one, we just got no idea. He was doubtful for last game. So doubtful for last game, VJ, means that it's probably getting better, unless you're the Hornets and Mark Williams. But it means it's likely getting better. So maybe he's questionable for the next one. Maybe he's doubtful again. We just don't know. Can I be a guest on the Locked On Hornets podcast? Like, if they ask me to, I will be. Without any problem. I go on any of the Locked On shows. All the times. Yang Shui Liu says, of course, Gafford goes off after I drop him. And I just wanted to bring this up because that's one of the more frustrating things this season, I think, Kingy. I think there's a lot of people who think that they've made this horrible mistake dropping Daniel Gafford. I don't know if you've gotten that feedback or whether they're either criticizing you about it or criticizing themselves, what a disgusting mistake they made. But I'll posit this, right? Gafford played 10 games for the Mavericks, right? Played 10 games for the Mavericks and averaged 17 minutes a night before he got put into the starting lineup. 10 games is a big sample size. That's over 10% of a season. 82-game season. 10 games is more than that. And for when he joined the team, there was about 30 games left in the year, around that mark. So it's like a third of the remaining season. And he was averaging 17 minutes a night with like 6.7 rebounds or something, right? That, when you're heading towards the playoffs, there's no way to look at that and go, oh, well, you know what? I can see everything becoming awesome here and turning around. So while in hindsight, we're seeing Gafford go crazy, when we hear the team come out and say, Lively's our center, when we see Luka Doncic come out and say, it's great that we acquired a backup center, when we see it in action for 33% of the remaining games that he was on the team, what other decision do you make? I think going the other way and go, no, I know it's happening. I know he's going to play 25 minutes a game coming up. It's going to happen. Just trust me. That's more of the wrong decision, even though the outcome turned out the other way. That's how I view it. It's a terrible mistake. I made the mistake, right? I didn't in one league because that was one of my leagues where I had the deeper bench and I could afford to just hold because that's the idea of those deeper benches. But I think dropping him, while it's frustrating, 17 minutes a night over 10 games, that to me is the absolutely the correct conclusion to make there.
Yeah, and I think you talk about this during draft season, and the process here is right. The way you would have come up with that decision to drop him was accurate because Maxi Kleber was playing minutes. He allows them to spread the floor. We weren't to know that they would then go, no, you get off. We're not playing Maxi Kleber at all. I can guarantee there were people earlier 2 months ago who streamed in Dante DiVincenzo he had a sort of average game. Then they dropped him. Then Anunoby got injured. DiVincenzo ended up being this top 40 player for a month, and people would have gone, I should have just held him. But you weren't to know. You can't project injuries. You can't project rotations. So
Yep. Again, I try and give guys longer than, like, I gave Coby White at the start of the season, longer than basically everybody. I try to give guys longer than is humanly possible. But 10 games is a pretty long sample size usually to get an idea of that. But it didn't happen. What are the odds that Trey Mann sits one of the back-to-back games this weekend coming off the groin strain? Kingy, I would suggest he's probably going to sit one of them, I would think.
I think so. I'd be okay, but I think people have started dropping him, and Misic has been better than him the last little bit anyway. So I wouldn't expect him to play both games. At least, maybe he plays both, but there'll be limited minutes at least.
VJ says, remember, Gafford wasn't even fully rostered. Yeah, I know. I did a whole segment on Gafford at the start of the year highlighting why please don't drop him. You guys are being crazy. These numbers are going to come back up. Like, I can assure you that this is insane. Please don't drop him. Yeah, people weren't doing it. All right, Anton, last question. What is King's favorite NBA team and player? Well, let me answer for you, King. Your favorite team is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Your favorite player is probably Miles Bridges.
I do like the Timberwolves. I wouldn't say I have a favourite team. Growing up, it was the Pacers. I love Reggie Miller and the Hornets, because Larry Johnson was one of my favourite players as well. So if we're talking about favourite players from when I was younger, obviously Jordan was up there, and Rick Smits was a personal favourite of mine.
Rick Smits.
So currently, I like Indiana. I like Minnesota. Who's my favourite player at the moment? It's probably when I'm looking at it from a fantasy perspective or a real life perspective, but I like Şengün, Wemby. I mean, Wemby's just so much fun to watch. He's doing things we haven't seen before. Halliburton, I like Halliburton as well. So yeah, I've got a few favorite guys out there, but Kelly Olynyk, got a soft spot for Kelly Olynyk.
I think we all do, Kingy. What was the other question? Oh yeah, Steve talks about Jordan Poole was rolling. I'm more worried about him not chucking as much. Is this worse than him being cold? I would say that the last game was not great. The one before that, I think he got in foul trouble. The one before that, I'm obviously always going to be worried given the PTSD from earlier this season, but I'm not going to be too bothered by that. All right. EC, or last question, Kim, before we go. Will Lively's value drop with no Doncic? Lively / Gafford, because obviously these guys never miss anymore, and a lot of that is because Luka's sets them up unbelievably. I would suggest that today is the day that Gafford misses a shot because Doncic is there. So I would say yes, both of them have a slight drop with no Doncic.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, Kingy, I'll let you go. You've got to go back to bed or do something, water your plants, got stuff to do. Tell people what is going on. Actually, you know what? You can explain to people why you are crazy and have decided to do a mock draft for next season, which I will always staunchly be against, and tell you to your face that it's dumb and you're an idiot for doing it. But you're doing it, so hey, tell people what's going on.
I actually had some people messaging me saying, "Oh, why isn't Josh in it? Did you even ask him?" And I said, "No, I didn't ask him because I know what his answer is going to be." Look, I was just frustrated. I get frustrated with injuries, as everyone does. It's just something different to talk about. We always preface that this is a mock draft. There's so much that could change in the next 6 months. It's way too early. Listen in if you just want some content. All the analysts that have been doing it, I think we're just having a bit of fun, not taking it too seriously. So, it's been good so far, but that is the reason that I didn't ask you, because you, as you said, you're very open about your opinion on doing a draft at this time of year. So
I will never do a mock draft until the end of August at the earliest is the earliest I'll drop out of a mock draft, and that's I won't do it any other time because I'm not putting the effort into something that doesn't mean anything at this when I've got so much other shit to do. So there you go. But yeah, have fun with your little mock draft, Kingy. That's great. You can do that, and I'll sit in the corner by myself and tell you that I don't like it.
Look, that's fair. And look, I guess for me as well, this whole fantasy basketball thing it's not my job. So this is a cool little hobby. It's something that I can do on the side. Whereas, you've got so much fantasy basketball stuff to do that throwing something else into that it's not worth it.
Yeah, I think that's when I think about it, like with the FBI World Cup, I think about that and like how there's the redrafts in the middle. I think that's why I'm not a big fan of that concept as well, because like once the season goes, like I've got to transition into doing a million other things. So then trying to like split between what's happening with schedules and waivers, then move that into doing another draft at that point. Like I don't have the brain capacity to be able to look at it in that way. So I think that's part of it as well. And then also once the season's over, I'm like, oh, cool, I'm just like winding down, preparing stuff for the next season that's not like taking guesses at mock draft stuff. But that's enough of that. Go check out Kingy's. If you're interested in a mock draft for 2024, 2025, Kingy's rolling one out there. You won't find me in it, but he is rolling one out there. So go check that out. Kingy, thank you again for getting up early and talking to me and talking to all of these legends out here about fantasy basketball.
My pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me.
Guys, you know what to do. You go ahead here and you hit the old subscribe button, you hit the old thumbs up button, and you double bang. You leave your comments, and then I hope that I have a better morning than the way this has started off to me with my computer blowing up, but I got it fixed just in time, a couple of minutes late. But hopefully everything is on the up from here. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.